This is Matthew Kratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about Bitcoin, gold, ESG, and pornography. And this might look like a strange set of bedfellows, but I think if you watch this whole video, you'll learn something very interesting about it. So ESG, of course, stands for environmental, social, and corporate governance. It's this whole movement and framework designed to force people to do certain things. And I've been arguing on this channel for a while that the ESG movement is much more about political control and not about actually helping the environment. It basically comes down to this: ESG for you plebs, but not for the elites. And I love this article about Davos. Says it's focusing on the climate crisis, but its billionaires and world leaders are still arriving on private jets. I could multiply articles like this. You've seen them everywhere. Massachusetts focused on long-term emission reduction goals while approving 2,500-gallon propane tanks for people who live in really big, nice houses. And we've seen this a lot when we talk about Bitcoin's energy usage. You have articles like this: the ridiculous amount of energy it takes to run Bitcoin. It turns out that global electricity production, Bitcoin takes up about a half a percentage, 0.55%. I've argued before that using a lot of electricity is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a sign of a very advanced civilization that doesn't live in mud huts, but instead has internet and AC and heating, etc. But let's just do this comparison. Bitcoin consumes approximately 0.55%, so that's about a half a percentage of global electricity, according to Google. Then let's compare this to another statistic. We've learned that the internet uses approximately 10% of global electricity, and if you do the research, about 35% of internet bandwidth is pornography. So about 3.5% of global electricity is being used basically for consuming porn. But this is okay, the authorities will tell you, but you cannot have a permissionless, censorship-resistant, non-debase-able money like Bitcoin because it uses too much electricity, but pornography is a much better use of global electricity. Of course, many of our elites are deeply into, I don't even know how to say it. I won't say it, but you guys know what I'm thinking about. If you're enjoying this video so far, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed to my channel. I don't need to emphasize this too much, but a society that tolerates and even encourages porn is a very weak society. It's full of weak, low testosterone men that are easily controlled, and you also end up with a lot of delayed family formation as a result of this. If you want to rule people effectively, a great way of doing it is making them very obese, glued to their screens, or turning them into either physical substance addicts or digital addicts. And this is, if you don't want to think about porn in moral or religious terms, you can just think of it as being a massive dopamine addiction that consumes a lot of young men's lives in particular. And this is the problem with fiat culture. It all flows from the money. Fiat culture, fiat money is just money that you can print up, like we have all the fake money we have. Fiat money, fiat culture is about fakeness. Your money is fake. Your sex life is fake, being purely digital for so many men. And we see this fiat money bleeds into fiat food, into fiat sex, and into fiat culture. I'll link to these articles here that talk about, that I used to make the calculation that 3.5% of global electricity is used for pornography on the internet. So here's 10% of global electricity consumption is used for the internet, and then 35% of internet bandwidth is pornography, according to Google. Now let's turn to gold and Bitcoin, because this is definitely related to that. Global central bankers are about to print a massive amount of new money. Once this tightening cycle is finished, and I think we're much closer to the end than to the beginning, they're going to need to bail everything out. They're going to need to fix everything they've crashed with freshly printed money. Inflating your way out of debt only works, though, if there are no good fiat exits. You need to basically boil the frogs alive in the boiling water. You need to slowly raise the temperature, keep them in treasuries, keep them in bonds, keep them in things that are not good inflation hedges, and then cause a lot of inflation. And so if you have good fiat exits like gold or Bitcoin, then this makes this more difficult. So that one of the ideas is you want to try to close these exits, make gold less effective, make Bitcoin more difficult to get at some point. As I've talked about on this channel, gold has been pretty much neutered by paper gold over the past 50 years, but it is still a bit of a life raft. It hasn't performed very well since Bitcoin came on the scene because Bitcoin is like gold, but it's a much better form of gold. It's sort of like gold 2.0, as we've talked about. And it's much more difficult, as I've also talked about, and I'll try to link to that video, it's much more difficult to neuter Bitcoin using paper Bitcoin than it is to neuter gold using paper gold. So now that we have this background and we understand how gold and Bitcoin are exits from the fiat system, it makes perfect sense right now, I think, to have an ESG attack on gold emerge right now before the money printers get turned back on. And according to Josh Crumb, it looks like this is what is coming down the stream. Heard something disconcerting this eve from a good source. Apparently the G7, these are the G7 countries, G7 morality police about to rain the propaganda down hard on gold. So it'll be very interesting to see if this happens. The attack is going to be an ESG attack on gold, owning gold and gold mining companies in the name of ESG and energy use. Apparently the message from on high already working into BlackRock et al. And this means that it will slowly trickle down to your local bank and your local financial advisor, and everyone will try to shame you for owning gold mining companies or owning gold. In the same way, this attack on Bitcoin for using too much energy usage. I think it's very important. It's been my experience, at least, that economics is almost always upstream from politics. People are very focused on the two political parties. Usually it's just two in their countries, Republicans versus Democrats in the US, but they pay much less attention to the economics. And the economics is quite often what the elites agree on. We have very few elites that are willing to criticize central bankers. So when you see a political story the next time, try to think about it in economic terms and try to think about what the incentives are for everyone involved in the story. And definitely, obviously, if there's anything we've learned over the past decade, it's not to take the news at face value. You probably should not have been taking the news at face value really since William Randolph Hearst 120 years ago. Learn what's going on at the level of money, sovereign debt, and central banks if you want to know what's really going on. And I think that this ESG attack on gold and Bitcoin, but not on porn, tells you everything that you need to know. You can see all the elites, all the bankers who criticize Bitcoin, Jamie Dimon repeatedly calling it worthless, calling it garbage, even though they sell it to some of their clients. Warren Buffett calling Bitcoin rat poison, and Charlie Munger calling it rat poison. Elizabeth Warren attacking the Bitcoin miners. At the same time, she hides when she gets out of her private jet. And this all makes sense because Elizabeth Warren has also been calling for a central bank digital currency, which is basically a spy coin, a surveillance coin, a coin control. So she wants to have her energy usage, but you can't have it. And she definitely does not want you to have your neutral money. And in case you think this is a partisan attack, both sides of Congress, both parties in the US, both major parties are guilty of this. We have all the Republicans who want Bitcoin to become highly regulated, and these Republicans are on the payroll of investment bankers and probably central bankers as well. And so I think it's important when we're thinking about gold and Bitcoin to view it in this context of fiat culture. And the next time someone tells you that Bitcoin uses too much energy, you can pull out that porn statistic. I think it's quite interesting that it uses 7 times the amount of electricity. Pornography uses 7 times the amount of electricity that Bitcoin mining does. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.